You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible.
The Dems had their plan and the Republicans certainly had theirs, and it was completely untethered from facts. On the Republican side, the strategy seemed to be talk fast, scream a lot, and protect the president.
Isn't it true the evidence did not establish that the president or those close to him were involved in the charged Russian computer hacking or active measure conspiracies, or that the president otherwise had unlawful relationships with any Russian official? Volume 2, page 76, correct?
I leave the answer to our report.
So as a yes. You stated that you would stay within the report. I just stated your report back to you. And you said that collusion and conspiracy were not synonymous terms. That was your answer, was no.
That's correct.
In that, page 180 of volume 1 of your report, it says, as defined in legal dictionaries, collusion is largely synonymous with conspiracy, as that crime is set forth in General Conspiracy Statute 18 U.S.C. 371. Now, you said you chose your words carefully. Are you contradicting your report right now?
Not when I read it.
So you would change your answer to yes then?
No. If you look at the language.
I'm reading your report, sir. It's a yes or no answer.
Page 180.
Page 180, volume 1.
Okay.
This was from your report.
Correct. And I leave it with the report.
So the report says, yes, they are synonymous.
Yes.
Hopefully, for finally, out of your own report, we can put to bed the collusion and conspiracy. Did you ever look into other countries investigated in the Russian interference into our election? Were other countries investigated or found knowledge that they had interference in our election?
I'm not going to discuss other matters.
Nipson told Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos tells the diplomat tells the FBI opens the investigation July 31st, 2016, and here we are 3 years later, July of 2019, the country's been put through this, and the central figure who launches it all lies to us, and you guys don't hunt him down and interview him again, and you don't charge him with a crime. The president was falsely accused of conspiracy. The FBI does a 10-month investigation, and James Comey, when we deposed him a year ago, told us at that point they had nothing. You do a 22-month investigation. At the end of that 22 months, you find no conspiracy. And what's the Democrats want to do? They want to keep investigating. They want to keep going. Maybe a better course of action is to figure out how the false accusation started. Maybe it's to go back and actually figure out why Joseph Nipson was lying to the FBI. And here's the good news. That's exactly what Bill Barr's doing. And thank goodness for that. That's exactly what the Attorney General and John Durham are doing. They're going to find out why we went through this three-year saga and get to the bottom of it.
Now, regarding collusion or conspiracy, you didn't find evidence of any agreement, I'm quoting you, among the Trump campaign officials and any Russia-linked individuals to interfere with our U.S. election, correct?
Correct.
So you also note in the report that an element of any of those obstructions you referenced requires a corrupt state of mind, correct?
Corrupt intent, correct.
Right. And if somebody knows they did not conspire with anybody from Russia to affect the election, and they see the big Justice Department with people that hate that person coming after them, and then a special counsel appointed who hires dozen or more people that hate that person, and he knows he's innocent. He's not corruptly acting in order to see that justice is done. What he's doing is not obstructing justice. He is pursuing justice, and the fact that you ran it out 2 years means you perpetuated injustice.
I take your question.
On the week of June 9, who did Russian lawyer Veselnitskaya meet with more frequently? The Trump campaign or Glenn Simpson, who is functionally acting as an operative for the Democratic National Committee?
Well, what I think is missing here is the fact that this is under investigation elsewhere in the Justice Department. And if I can finish, sir, and consequently it's not within my purview, Department of Justice and FBI should be responsive to questions on this particular issue.
It is absurd to suggest that a operative for the Democrats was meeting with this Russian lawyer the day before and the day after the Trump Tower meeting, and yet that's not something you referenced. Now, Glenn Simpson testified under oath he had dinner with Veselnitskaya the day before and the day after this meeting with the Trump team. Do you have any basis, as you sit here today, to believe that Steele was lying?
As I said before, and I'll say again, it's not my purview. Others are investigating what you
So it's not your purview to look into whether or not Steele's lying. It's not your purview to look into whether or not anti-Trump Russians are lying to Steele. And it's not your purview to look at whether or not Glenn Simpson was meeting with the Russians the day before and the day after you write 3,500 words about the Trump campaign meeting. The guy who said Viva la Resistance.
Peter Strzok worked for me for a period of time, yes.
Yeah, but so did the other guy that said Viva la Resistance. And here's what I'm kind of noticing, Director Mueller. When people associated with Trump lied, you threw the book at him. When Christopher Steele lied, nothing. And so it seems to be that when Glenn Simpson met with Russians, nothing. When the Trump campaign met with Russians, 3,500 words. And maybe the reason why there are this discrepancies in what you focused on is because the team was so biased.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
Pledged to stop Trump.
So we were someplace between, as Robert said, auctioneering.
Yes.
And just screaming like banshees. And it left me knowing, one, there was no real concern about the American public understanding anything they were saying, because it was Russian name here, Russian name there, FISA, when did you, why did you not? So they went outside of the report basically saying, why weren't these things in the report, as opposed to asking about things that were actually in the report. And then it, unless they were performing for an audience of one, which I suspect they were, because the president, in his soundbite on his way to West Virginia, said, the way that they stuck up for me, you know, like that was their job as opposed to working for the American people. But here's my point. And uncoached, right? Because if you actually want people to hear you, you don't yell. If you're trying to get a point across, I mean, if you're trying to be effective at getting a point across, and I know they know how, because when it's their witnesses, they don't do that. But what's the net gain, basically, from all of those questions that nobody understood anything about?
Well, first off, I think you kind of have to, in a sense, I think what Jim Jordan and those guys were doing was kind of building a case outside so they can say, look, it's bigger than just, let's talk about why this is even here. And that's where they were giving names we were talking about during the break of people haven't even heard about. Names I was like, wait, who's that again? But that's my point. We should focus on the facts of who are these individuals, why, and get to the root of what the actual issue is. And I think
and why is it important for us to get to the root of the person who was at the meeting when he found out that the Russians were peddling information? Why is it important whether that person got a deal, which of course we know he did, but Mueller wouldn't say, and why that person ended up not charged, as opposed to the real root of, oh, what happened is Russia was peddling information? Isn't Russia the root, as opposed to the one person who actually brought the information to the FBI?
No, again, perhaps with other individuals and things going on that the public should know about, and that maybe we don't know that they have access to information too, perhaps. But I think the bigger thing is, I don't think they were, so to speak, cheering for the president so he can watch them. I think that they were passionate and frustrated the past couple of years that this has been going on. I think they essentially were supporting the party, so to speak, and supporting what they actually believe in. I think the Democrats do the same thing. I saw a hearing a few days ago, and they were just at a different ballgame, yelling and stuff. I mean, everybody does it. I think at the end of the day, there's passion, there's frustration, and that is why we got what we got in their speeches.
And that's actually one of the things that they used in one of their little semi-closings today to justify why the president was running around lying and trying to get people to obstruct justice, that he was so innocent, that he was frustrated. I get so emotional, type frustrated about it, that his frustration led him to do things that maybe he shouldn't have and say things that he shouldn't have. I'm interested, I'm moving on, but I'm interested, Professor, in all these emotional men when I thought we were supposed to be the emotional creatures who were unfit to lead and serve, because we would be like caught in our feelings, and the men would be able to be so much more objective. What has done happened?
Well, I mean, I think this is, I mean, I don't disagree with Chris in that this is the moment we're in. This is what passes for reasoned deliberation. Now, screaming screaming at people. And I'm sorry, I think it's rich that this man who ran full-page ads calling for the death of innocent children in newspapers is talking about how persecuted he is. He is the last person that I'm going to cry a tear over, in part because you have all these other men who are covering for him. And I think you're exactly right here. They are creating the defense for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They are raising these names and just effectively passing the ball. Who is Kislyak? Who is this person? Who is this person? Lisa Page and Strzok had a affair. Like, what's that about? And creating all of this reasonable doubt. I think that's what it's called. I'm not an attorney. But essentially creating the terms that says, well, there were so many hands in the pot. Of course, Donald Trump couldn't be guilty because all these other people were doing stuff. And if your defense is, but so-and-so got a deal and my guy didn't get a deal, it's not fair. That's not much of a defense at all. And that's exactly what I heard all of these men in Very Blue doing, is trying to pass around enough guilt, right? Because there are people on all sides who are doing bad things. And I'm like, come on, people. If we can't actually have a conversation about a duly sworn legal document from a person that was brought in as a Republican, by a Republican, into the FBI, talking about Robert Mueller, and under the leadership of a James Comey and all these guys who were also Republicans, and say that, hey, there might be something in this document worth excavating, then what are we doing here other than political theater?
Well, but hold on, because I agree with you, and I agree with you that they were intentionally doing the outside thing. But here's the thing. This is one of the areas where I'm critical of the Democrats, even though I must say, and I'm looking at my notes right now, last night I sat down and did some notes like, okay, if they had had like any good sense and hired a strategist for what the game plan was going to be for today, here's what I think from a trial lawyer, crisis management perspective, the game plan should be. But I was pleasantly surprised because I was writing down, you should have your clear categories, you should have your assigned examiners, you should share your time, you should do all, and they did all those things. But what I also wrote, and I giggled about, was if you don't have anybody who has like sensei level, Kamala Harris level examination skills, then you got to stick to the script, and you got to be talking to each other when there comes a time where you have to do something that's off the script. Here's where they failed that, because Robert Mueller, one of the only times he was actually going to offer more. He wanted to explain the fact that there were other investigations by other branches that addressed these things, but whoever the Dem was on the other side was like, I'm short on time, and I'm like, let's see. When you have a witness who is as cagey and guarded and deliberate and disciplined as this man, and he, for one time, says, and another thing, I'd be like, Edith Hutton's talking. Right. What's he going to say?
Well, the issue was, and this is what Democrats do often, the Republicans found out there was a baseball game, so they showed up with a baseball glove, some cleats, and a baseball bat. The Democrats found out there was a baseball game. They came with some soccer shorts on. They came with a basketball and a badminton racket. The Democrats were not playing the game that Republicans were playing. Republicans were playing a game where they realized we are on defense. We just need to run the clock out and muddy the water. So what they did was run the clock out and muddy the waters. Democrats had the affirmative burden to bear. They had to get Robert Mueller to show the American people that obstruction did indeed happen, and the only reason he did not charge President Trump was because of the DOJ memo. That was the only thing that they needed to get out of the hearing, and they failed to get that.
Oh, did you think so? Because I thought that came in the first 2 minutes of the hearing.
No, because what they kept trying to do, Democrat after Democrat kept trying to get Robert Mueller to affirmatively say that he would have charged President Trump if he wasn't president. And they did not have a Kamala Harris there. They did not have somebody with the cross-examination skills. They needed Joe Biden on that.
Except for he did affirmatively say it. He had to come back and walk back a little bit of it.
Yeah, he walked it back.
But he did affirmatively say that it is because of the memorandum that they didn't even get to the estimation, but they continued the investigation because they wanted and to preserve the record while it was fresh. It's only really a low moron who can't understand. You don't go forward where there is no evidence. You investigate where there is. And then he laid out 10 areas of potential obstruction, and then they arrested people who lied about it. So to me, to say that the Dems went in there and didn't extract from this report, and I also take exception with it being a game. This isn't a game. This is people's lives. This is the United States of America. The Republicans definitely did their circus show job, but I believe the Dems should not have run offense in that manner, because it was actually supposed to be a serious committee hearing. They were going back to the times where we actually tried to do business and get information from the witnesses. But I got to go to break.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
All right, folks, you heard me talk a lot about marijuanastock.org. Why? Because I want to keep you informed of investment opportunities that make sense. We have all watched the growth of the cannabis industry. A recent report by New Frontier Data estimates the global cannabis market at over $340 billion. We know that marijuana legalization is sweeping the country state by state. We also know that marijuana has a good cousin, the hemp plant, with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all of the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the U.S. and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill changed all of that, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S. and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. And they need land to grow all of the plants. Folks, this is not rocket science. It's just an investment, an incredible investment opportunity. And that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in. In their business model, it is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. Our friends at 420 Real Estate decided to do something special for the Roland Martin Unfiltered family. Originally, the minimum investment level was $500. Right now, though, you can invest in the crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200. The range is from $200 to $10,000. Again, this is a $340 billion industry, okay, that is still growing, and you can get in with as little as $200. To invest, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game, and you can do it now.
Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.